I want to start with a scenario. You prepared your pitch. You remember your track record. And you left the meeting feeling, wow, I did it really well. I felt they liked me. I like them. I think this is it. 20 minutes later, the ego mind starts to be really loud. And you tell yourself, I shouldn't have said that. Why did I say this? Why didn't I articulate that? Why didn't I push back when they stated this? Why didn't I ask this? And why was it that I only asked questions towards the end? And then feedback comes. And it sounds down the lines of, we like you, but it seems you're more operational than strategic. And you freeze. Because it couldn't be further from the truth. But here is the big challenge. You don't understand why you get that feedback. You don't understand why people see you more as an operational leader, as a strategic leader. And here's where it goes wrong. You did not decide who you want to be in that room. And if you do not intentionally decide who you want to be in the room, then someone else will decide for you. And I know for a fact that if you are not consciously aware of how you want to show up, your nervous system will decide for you, because your nervous system is your strategy. And what most people are not aware of is that the person who asks the most questions holds the power. So if you haven't decided to go in or be in the room as a trusted advisor, as someone who, let me see if I can help you, rather than, do you have a job for me? I call it the taker's mindset, do you have a job for me? Rather than the giver's mindset, the trusted advisor. Haven't you decided how you want to position yourself? Someone else will make that decision for you. And it will always be the hiring manager who takes the reins if you haven't decided to show up as a trusted advisor. It is not because you're broken. It is not an interview problem. It is not a confidence problem. I would say it's not a skill problem. But you're faced with a declaration problem. Because before you even opened the door, you clicked join on Zoom, you have already made that decision who you want to be in the room. And it is part of our upbringing. It is part of the conditioning from home to show up, to smile, to be polite. But when we want to land our next dream job, yes, we want to be polite. But if you are anything like me, let's reframe it, then you have years of experience. Now it's about you playing yourself full out, showing that you are good enough because you are. It's about owning your worth. And that comes by deciding who you are in the room. You're not begging to have a job. You're not you're looking for your first job. Do you have a job for me? No. You have something that the other people in the room are looking for. But because you're looking for a job, you don't light on that opportunity that someone is actually looking for me. Where am I me? You actually have the total light on you and your need. And that is a trap. And that focus gets you in the taker's mode rather than in the giver's mode or giver's mindset. And there is actually a clinical name for this, and it's called the Fawn response. You know, the fight, the flight, the freeze response, right? But there is a fourth one, the Fawn, and it's the one running most corporate meetings. I would say most women leaders do not know this syndrome. I would call it. Most women leaders haven't even heard it, because the Fawn response shows up when you soften your pitch, or when your pitch focus on your task, on your doing, rather than actually owning your fame, owning the patterns that you've seen. The syndrome shows up when you do not ask bold questions, when you wait for permission to ask questions. Even though you've been given the permission to be in the room, you still are running on that old blueprint of be pleased, be happy that you've been invited to this conversation. Yes, that is amazing. But also you have a choice to say no to be in that meeting, right? So we have given away power to a blueprint that got us this far. We say, be the nice girl, be smart, yeah, be polite, smile. But when it's about a job and when it's about landing a higher paid job, you want to take the room as that person, as that business you are running, because whether we're in corporate or we are solopreneurs or we are running a small business, we all have a brand. Most leaders, people in corporate, forget they have a brand, forget they have their own company, they run their own company, but we all run our own company. And when you want to pitch yourself, whether it's for your next dream job, in-house, or joining a new company, you own your brand and you get to carry your brand. And so when you are not trained to own the room, and you are not trained to, when you weren't trained to own the room, but you were trained to earn your place, then guess what happens when you have not declared who you are in that conversation? You've been waiting for permission to speak. And there's a massive performance difference between those who declared who they are in the room and those who are waiting to be given the permission to speak up. And it goes whether we're looking for a new job or whether we're actually just trying to do our best in the role that we have. But right now we are owning in on who you are in the room, right? And I want to give you the principle. Nobody told you. In a room or in any room that matters, there are two roles. There's the one who asks questions, and there's the one who answers them. And it doesn't matter whether it's a hiring manager or a candidate. Doesn't matter if it's a CEO or a direct report. The one who asks the most questions owns the conversation. That is simply it. So how do we get to own the conversation? We get to own the conversation when we declare that I am here to discover, how can I serve? And the person who asks most questions and boldest questions also frames the conversation, of course. And the more you wanting to land your next dream job or stand out for a next promotion, the more you ask bold questions, the more you get people to listen to you. So the question you want to ponder on is, how have you taken any room so far, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And how do you really, really want to show up? This is the deep work I do with my private clients, because everything is identity. Everything is 80% of your next up level, landing your next dream job, is about aligning with what you want in life. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So the situation I shared in the beginning of you not being able to ask all the questions and feedback, are you an operations manager more than a strategic manager? How did you actually come across? Not in terms of being aggressive, but how many bold questions did you ask? How many bigger questions did you ask? And I know from my own journey, the more I do my personal development journey, the more I do my identity, the more let's reframe that. The more, what I know to be true is that the more I sit with my next level identity, the more clarity I get, and the bigger questions I ask myself and ask others. So I guess the reason why you're listening to this video is that you want to land your next dream job. So what is the character that you're playing out now? And who do you really want to be? That is the identity shift. And when you shift identity, you also ask bolder questions. So the question to reflect on is how you showed up so far. But a bigger question, a more important question is, how do you want to show up in this conversation? Because if you do not decide before the door opens who you want to be, do you want to be a doer or a trusted advisor? Somebody else will decide for you, because then they are the host and they already decided what role you're going to play. That's why mental preparation is utterly important, but very few people know this, very few people practice this, but it shifts everything. It can be a team meeting. I help leaders mentally prepare before a team meeting, before pitching into the CEO. Whatever room that is important for you, you want to mentally prepare whatever conversation you're going to have, mentally prepare how I'm going to take this room, who I'm going to be in this room. And when it comes to the corporate world, if you do not decide, someone else will decide whether you're a trusted advisor or you're a doer. But if you're most familiar with being in the doer role, guess how you will show up as a doer. But I want to help you become so aware of your next level identity, of owning that, yes, I am a trusted advisor. So how would a trusted advisor sit in the chair? How would a trusted advisor listen? How would a trusted advisor ask bold questions, right? That is everything to do with mentally preparation. And you want to mentally prepare more on your identity than rehearsing the questions that you're going to ask, or rehearsing your track record. When I was in corporate, we would do a lot of dry runs, but dry runs on remembering the presentation, but nobody talked about identity. And when I picked up that if I'm not aligned with my nervous system, I remembered the entire deck, but everything went black when I was on stage, because I hadn't aligned my inner world. My nervous system was running me rather than me running the nervous system. That's when I realized how important it is to mentally prepare, because you know your stuff. You don't have to spend more time on your stuff. You have to spend more time on aligning who you want to be in the room. And I want to promise you 3 keys. Here are 3 important keys that I practice with my clients. And if you're willing to do this work, willing to sit with this and embrace and accept that there is another way to do it, a different way to do it, it can likely be that the next conversation will be a very different experience for you. So listen up. The 3 moves, you can do it as shortly as 60 seconds before your next conversation. Because what matters is how you decide. What matters is who you decide to be in that room. So that is move number 1. Unjustly declare to yourself, in this room, I'm going to be, is a doer or is a trusted advisor? Who do you want to be? Declare for yourself. And as you declare that move to yourself, then you also, and move 2, declare who you no longer want to be. You cannot live in both homes or houses. You cannot be in both identities. So if you declare to be a trusted advisor, what do you no longer do? What do you let go? I call that the release phase. I should call this whole the declaration protocol. First you declare, then you go into releasing your old self. So in the last interview, what did you do? Right? Did you wait for permission to ask questions, or did you show up with curiosity, beaming energy, shining your light? You're curious. What's really going on here? How did you show up, and how do you want to show up differently as a better and bigger version of yourselves? 2 different approaches, 2 different ways of 2 different identities, 2 different ways of thinking, 2 different ways of framing questions. Move 3 is own your assets. I'm taking my clients through a 3-step model called identity, innovate, and inspire. And identity, that's what we're talking about now, is also owning your assets. So in that conversation, when we talk about your track record and your pitch, own the patterns that you see. Name what you have experienced. Name the results. Name why the work that you do is so important. And be proud of your journey and what you have achieved. What I wanted to share with you as well, one of my notes here, that's utterly important, is that whether people know it or not, we all declare who we want to be in the room. But most people do that unconsciously, and they do that inherently. They do that running on I'm the boss, I want to win, or they do that running on a blueprint that I've been taught to smile, I've been taught to be very polite. And a lot of us women have been taught to be very polite. Unfortunately, that sabotages, that is self-sabotage when we want to land our next dream job. We want to be polite, we want to respect other people, but you're not going to be the underdog. There's 2 different ways of showing up, 2 different identities, right? And your parents' blueprint got you where you are right now, but you want to shift that blueprint, upgrade that blueprint, so that you can land your next dream job faster. So everyone in that meeting room walked in declaring something to themselves, whether they know it or not. And the room organizes around those who are the loudest. But the room also reorganizes around those who declare that they are the trusted advisors, because you do not have to play with power when you are a trusted advisor. What you need to do is to own yourself, own your frequency, and beam your light so that you attract everyone else. You want to help everyone, I don't know everyone else, but the hiring manager to get from where he is to where he wants to be, right? Very few people have that perspective, have that light on helping other people. They go into the room with a taker's mindset. You're going into the room with a giver's mindset. And I've seen it time after time after time, how this just helps. That perspective and that approach help other people land better jobs, higher pay, so much faster, because they come with a giver's mindset and not a taker's mindset. Here's what I want to highlight. When you go in as a giver's mindset, own the decisions that you made, because it's part of your asset log. It's not part of a generic playbook. And own the patterns that you saw that nobody else saw, because they were part of the problem. But you came in the room with your life force energy and helped them get unstuck. And the problem that you solved were not in any job description, but you solved them. And those problems are probably way more important to solve than the problems that were listed in the job description. So really own your asset. Now let's go back to the interview. Imagine my client had practiced the 3 moves, declaring who she was in the room, releasing who she no longer wanted to be, and owning her assets. She would have walked in with a very different identity. She would have asked bolder questions. She would have shaped the conversations. And by shaping the conversations, she would also frame what's next. And she wouldn't have gotten the feedback, we see you as an operational leader more than a strategic leader. Same job, same room, same panel, but completely different outcome. And that's what happens when you mentally prepare who you want to be in the room. The room does not decide who you are. You decide before the door opens. So mental preparation is not about rehearsing and remembering your CV, the questions you want to ask. It's not about remembering to smile. It is deciding with intention who you walk in as. I've said it in many videos. You were born naked, without any beliefs and what is right and wrong. And you were not born to be polite. You were not born to be an underdog. You were taught to be. But what we learn can be unlearned. That is the work. And that is the work I do. If you want to work with me, everything is in the description below. I know you can. Now go.